What's going on, peeps? It's Wrath here, hanging out today, playing some Idle Heroes. I want to thank you guys so much for coming out with me today. If you liked the video, don't forget, smash that thumbs up button and show your support. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe as well. Alright guys, what sounds a little different today is because I've reverted to using an older headset to try to make sure the audio actually gets captured from the mic, because I have lost 4 videos in the last 2 days due to failed external mic picking up. Really annoying problem to have. And it happens. So we're probably going to pick up some new headphones sometime this week. And then maybe look into getting a good laptop so we can start recording on a, on a PC-ish kind of thing instead too. So we'll see how that goes. But for right now, we're here on the official servers because it's event day. On event day, we're on official servers, what we do. We might have to do this for a private server as well because they will have, different events, obviously. But, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. For right now, Z's, what's the new events? This is not new. It's actually still going on for a few more hours. I finished mine out. Good thing. Good times. Value packs, you're going to see some flour cakes. I'm not really seeing a flour on it. But whatever. It looks like some kind of vegan food, which earns a thumbs down from Wrath because that sounds horrible. Anyways, whatevs. That's what's going on right here. Some profit orbs as well being thrown in with your value packs. Nothing, special like skins or anything in the value packs. But the dessert cottage. This does not look like a dessert to me. It has grass under it. I don't know. Maybe it's something in China. It doesn't seem like something here. But you'll notice right here at the top, there is a new skin. But before we get to that, we'll just look at other stuff you've got. So the Augustus Magic Balls, the big, artifact from the event. It is very expensive. At 3,200, you will not be able to get that free to play. There's just no way. That rhymed. It worked. It was pretty good. But you will have to spend some money to snag that stuff out. It's just not going to happen as free to play. Faith Blade at 3,000 will be the exact same story. It's not going to happen. You're not getting that kind of numbers without spending some money. I would even say that Valkyrie is definitely out of reach for free to play at 2,800. I've heard people say that during these week-long events, if you're super lucky, you can get like 2,500 of the special items. I've never gotten that high, but I do miss a lot of my campaign loot times. I generally average about 1,500 plus. 1,500, 1,800 generally is where I end the events. So for me, that's just not going to be possible, even though it'd really be great, because I am trying to get the copies to get Valkyrie built. That's going to be a plan for the official server. We'll see. At 2,500, you're going to have King Barton, who was buffed recently, where his counterattack, actually all counterattacks, no longer add energy to enemies, which doesn't really affect me as a PvE player. I don't really care. Nothing really gets game-breakingly bad because I counter and give energy. But in PvP, King Barton could be a little annoying because he does feed energy to enemies. However, he's also pretty freakish in PvP. I'm not going to lie about it. Especially if you have 2 of the dudes, it's just stupid. Because he has a really good chance to stun just with his basic attack, not at 5-star, obviously. But the fact that he counters everybody and deals extra damage to stun foes, if you run like 2 KBs, like you see in Seasonal happen a lot, he's incredibly difficult to deal with, and it's super annoying to fight them. But I don't know. Over here, maybe not the same thing. I would say he's still definitely very solid in PvP on the official servers. So we'll see about that. But he does have a skin, and the skin looks really cool. To me, it looks like he's some kind of dwarven god. You know what I'm saying? That's what it reminds me of. Very much so. Dwarfy. I like it. I think it looks pretty cool, though. I'm into that kind of stuff. So that was cool. I think the skin looks really awesome. I would be down for that if I used Kang Barton. If I used Kang Barton, I would definitely run the skin. But since I'm not a PvP guy, ain't gonna happen. For me, what I'm probably going to focus on is either dumping everything into Profit Orbs or into Heroic Scrolls. That's generally what I spend as a free-to-play player my event-based items on. You could go with Super Chips. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Most of the time, literally 60% of the time, you're going to pull either Gold or Monster Blood with them. That's their odds. So only 40% of the time you're going to get something else, and only like 0.5% of the time you actually get the hero. So that's like 1 in 200. Not super great odds, obviously, on the Super Chips for official. Not what I'd recommend you spend your event items on. Same with the Gold and the Spirit. That's mainly just what you spend if you want to zero your total out at the end of the event. If I have like 1 or 2 left over, I'll just keep them because it'll be like, I don't know, something cool to look at in my inbox, I guess, and see that I still have delicious grass cakes from an event. I don't know, it's me. But yeah, generally I would say your best items are going to be heroic scrolls and profit orbs. Profit orbs are generally your best value to item ratio. That's, in my experience, is generally what you want to buy instead. But either one will work depending on what you need. That's kind of the thing. So if you're free to play, I would definitely settle on one of these two unless you're a King Barton PvP kind of guy. And then the skin definitely does look cool, but is it worth missing out on the profit orbs? That's, I guess you have to decide that. It does look really cool, though. I like it. Anyways, shelter missions going on, and the shelter mission this time around for me is a complete bust because I don't need anything for Heroic Miracles. The only reason I would do any of these missions right now is for the 4-star gear. That would be the literal only reason I would do it. I don't need any of these heroes. I don't want any of these heroes. But we'll talk a little bit about them anyways because we're here. Makes sense to do. So we'll start here with Ormus. If you guys don't know much about Ormus, he's just a healer. That's what he does. He heals your team, not by a bunch at 5 to 9 star and still not by a ton at 10 to 13. He does get out healed by Vesa. Which is a little bit, not the best, but it's thing. He's not terrible early game if you need a healer for your team. He does heal your entire team, which can be nice early game, but when you start progressing to mid and late game, you're better off sacrificing Ormus to almost any other unit and just using another unit. He's not that great, especially if you compare him to Vesa, who does, way more damage and also out-heals him. Even if you build her with crit, she will still out-heal an Ormus that's based in attack. So he's not the best healer, but for an early game player, he will work. The main reason I would pick this guy up for myself, my own opinion, is for the 4-star gear, and if I was short Fortress Faction heroes in my bag, because pulling this hero out will throw him into your bag, not into your actual hero inventory, so when Heroic Miracle comes around, you can pull him out and earn some points that way. Personally, like I said, though, I'm not into him. He's not someone I'm going to go for. The only reason I'd pick him up is for the gear. However, if you are a PvP-minded person, this next hero, Kamath, is actually pretty decent for you. Kamath's not bad in PvP at all. I wouldn't say he's god tier personally. He's just a little too slow to be a god, in my opinion. That's just my personal opinion. But he is definitely not bad. Kamath is one of the few heroes that gains damage against petrified units. He's actually, I think, the only one that does that. And he has a Petrify on his basic attack and his active skill. So that's pretty nice. He can chain very well once he actually gets someone petrified, but before you petrify somebody, Kamath's damage is very low. He's mainly used for crowd control, and he is immune to being petrified too, which is kind of nice for PvP. And he gains some nice reduced damage when he falls below half health. This is just the 5-star version. I don't feel like going through and looking at the tins right now. We might do a quick glance at them later. But the idea is Kamath is purely a PvP hero. He's strictly designed to crowd control enemies, and once he crowd controls them, he deals extra damage to them. Not a bad unit for PvP. I've seen a lot of people use Kamath. I've fought some Kamaths and had my butt handed to me by him. But, like I said, if you're not going PvP, this guy's not worth it. He's not going to do anything for a PvE-based team. But again, if you need a Shadow Faction unit for your Heroic Miracle or some gear, that would be a decent reason to pick one up. With that said, we'll move on over here to Edga. Now, Edga is one of the units I have not used on official at any kind of high rank. However, I did use him on the private server before he got radically changed recently, and he does stack a pretty nasty amount of crit damage over the course of 15 waves, so in PvE, I would say a 13-star or an E3 Edga could probably reach about 100 million plus on the official servers. On private, he hits way harder because of the different enable system and, just different stuff. But I would say you could probably get an Edga on official to hit over 100 million damage in PvE, which sounds like a ton, but for an E3 unit, if you're specifically gearing towards PvE, that's not super great. It's not super terrible, but I don't know. To me, I don't think he's worth a build on official. Personally, I think he looks really cool. His skin looks really cool. But as for just outright usefulness, I don't think he's all that useful. Does have use in Aspen because a lot of his skills do heal him and stuff like that. But in Aspen, he is forced into the front line, so he gets HP and block instead of the extra attack and crit damage and precision. So that kind of weighs into him a little bit. But like I said, not a bad unit, but he's not a great unit. He's kind of sitting there at the mid-tier range for PvE. When you swap over to PvP, he just gets butt-known really fast. He's not a PvP unit at all. So kind of a mid-tier unit. Again, the only reason to pick this guy up would be Forest in your Heroic Miracles or some gear. Or if you're a new player, any 5-star is going to help your team a little bit, so it's not a bad deal to pick it up. If you've got something like Faceless or, Starlight, Edga's going to be better than those units pretty much universally. So In situations like that, it might be worth picking up, but for like me, I don't see a good use for him in the mid to late game, so I'm not going to build one. Not worried about it. Dan Tallien up next. Dan Tallien was one of my very first 6-star units, I believe, in the entire game, but I did end up feeding him out, which is a little sad because he was pretty cool. But Dan Tallien. Dan Tallien, what to say about Dan Tallien? I thought Dan Tallien kind of sucked. I'm not going to lie. I thought he was a pretty bad unit. But since he got changed on the official servers to heal by missing HP when taking damage instead of by an attack percentage, he's actually not bad. I watched some videos on Reddit. Now, I know I don't do a lot of research on idle heroes outside of my own gameplay and testing, and talking to people in the game, of course. I usually don't go out of my way to, like, read Reddit or watch other YouTube channels on the game because I already make videos on it, so it's kind of, I don't know. It's like watching yourself or watching someone else do what you already do. I don't know. It doesn't work for me. But anyways, I was on Reddit and I was looking up a little video about Dan Tallien, and I watched an E3 Dan Tallien tank through an E3 light dark team because they couldn't kill him. It went to 15 waves and the attacker lost because they just couldn't bring down Dan Tallien with all the HP he had when he got hit and he got low in health. His heals got so big that he didn't die. So, kind of a trolly PvP unit at E3 that I've seen. Decent damage versus warriors as well. But to invest heavily in Dan Tallien, I can't say it's a great idea, but I also can't say it's a bad idea. Especially when you think about being E3, Dan Tallien passively is going to gain a similar deal to self-cure here, where at the end of every round, he's going to heal based on missing HP anyway. Not to mention, every time he gets hit, he's also going to heal based on that missing HP. And it can make the guy very difficult to kill when you start getting him low in health, because his heals are going to be pretty huge. And like I said, it's one of those things. He seems like a pretty solid E3 tank, but I can't really justify using him as a PvE player because I don't see a lot of areas he's going to boost my damage. Unless you're really trolling in PvP, I don't see a great use for Dan Tallien, but like I said, without having used one myself, I can't say. All I'm dealing on with Dan Tallien is what other people have used him, and I've seen him actually work pretty effectively as a PvP tank. But for me, I just don't see a use, so I'm not super excited about having one in the shelter mission. I don't need one. So, again, if you need a Abyss hero or some 4-star gear, orange gear, worth picking up. And if you're a newer player, I could say that Dan Tallien's probably a pretty solid tank for you. To be honest, I don't think he'd be bad. He has pretty much a mini resilience buff before he's even E3'd, so that's definitely not a bad deal. I would say he can definitely work as an early to mid-game tank, and if you E3 him to troll in PvP, I don't think you're going to get punished super hard for it. You might, but I don't know. We'll see. That's just my take on Dan Tallien. The other two units, the light and dark units, these are a little expensive. They do set you back 2,000 gems and 2 copies of a dark hero and light hero, respectively. The main reason I'm not super excited about these is both of these heroes you can buy in the Altar Shop, and Gurki you can actually buy in both the Altar Shop and the Brave Trial shop. So it seems like a waste, in my opinion, to waste Dark Fodder and gems just to pick out a Dark Arthidol. For me, if you're a big PvP guy and you want that E3 Dark Arthidol, this may be very much worth for you. If you need Dark Heroes for Heroic Miracle, again, might be very much worth for you. To me, this just isn't worth it. She's PvP, so I don't really care for her anyways. Just in my personal PvE bias, she's not important to me. But the fact that she is readily available in the altar does kind of lower her value, in my opinion, and when it comes to events like this where you're shelling out some of your dark food and gems to get one. You don't necessarily need to. You can, of course, if you're just one copy short, you want that E3, up to you. Personally, I'm not that big on it, but Dark Arthidol is 100% a PvP unit. She's all about crowd control. That's what she does. She's actually a pretty fast unit when she's 10-starred, so she's up there in the top speed units, which is good, obviously, for PvP. And being a dark unit, she fits nicely into good versus evil teams, or 3 light, 3 dark, which does have an innate 30% crowd control immunity built into it. So definitely a PvP unit, works in in-game PvP teams. I've seen a lot of her, but if you're not going PvP, or if you're more into, fighting bosses, she will do next to nothing for you. She does, no damage at all. She's just not that great. But, with that said, the last one on the list here is going to be Gurki. Apart from being one of the coolest looking heroes, in my opinion, Gurki is also one of the least useful heroes on Official. At 10-star, he does gain, a holy damage boost for your team when he drops his active skill, which can be nice. but he just doesn't drop a lot of damage himself. He can nuke a little bit in PvP, but because he's one of the slowest units in the game, he usually gets CC'd or just crapped on before he can anyway. So Gurki, I would say, is one of the least used light and dark units in the game. He's just not super great at it, so you don't see a lot of them get built. He's not a horrible unit in certain areas. Like, if you want to look in the Aspen, he will work decently well in the Aspen. I wouldn't say he's on par with God-tier Aspen heroes at all, but he has some use. Like I said, besides looking cool, it's almost all Gurki has going for him right now. He's one of the only light and dark heroes, I would say, that really need a buff. Most of them are doing fine, if not needing a nerf, like Mim and Faithblade. Those heroes are doing just fine the way they are, maybe even need to be scaled back a bit. But when you look at Gurki, he's not that great. I mean, other than looking really cool and having a few limited uses, he's not a super in-game unit. You don't see a lot of people using one, so that's just my opinion on Gurki. Not bad, a little bit of healing, a little bit of self-healing when he does attacks, and self-healing when he takes damage. He also stacks a decent amount of holy damage on himself, which can be nice for nuking, like I said, but I mean, he's so slow in PvP, it doesn't make a difference, and in PvE, he doesn't have the damage to actually make him worth a spot in your team, in my opinion. So there you go, that's the units from the Shelter mission. I'm not, like I said, as not a PvP player, the only real PvE units would be Ormus, Edga, maybe Tallien, maybe Gurki, and I don't need anything for Heroic Miracle. I'm 100% set for that, not even a problem. I don't need it. I mean, the orange gear wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know, I just don't feel like shelling out the 4-star and 5-star units just to pick up one of these guys. I don't need them. I don't need them. So for this event, pretty much is a bust to me. The only thing I'm going to do this entire event is turn my little leaf cakes into some Prophet Orbs or some Heroic Scrolls. That's really all I'm going to do out of it. Shelter mission does not really appeal to me at all. It may appeal to you if it does. Snag them units out, play with them, have a good time. I guess we can take a little quick peek at the 10-starred version. Kamath, not bad, decent attack. Like I said, he's not the fastest unit. 1161's not super quick. The reduced damage is definitely nice, though. The Petrify on basic and active skills, along with a boosted damage to petrified targets, is again pretty nice for PvP. Sucks in PvE, would never use in PvE, not worth in PvE. But other than that, not bad. When you go to the Fortress here, Ormus, I've got a 10-star Ormus, and I can tell you right now, he's on my list of heroes to use as food. I will not enable Ormus at all, he's not worth it in my opinion. Definitely worth being food though, unless he gets buffed. His heals seem like they'd be really great, but they're not all that amazing. They're not bad like in the first couple of rounds, but once you hit like round 5, Vesa's going to out-heal him and do 3 times the damage. So there's really no reason to invest in an Ormus if you can just invest in Vesa, instead and do well. Yeah, not that strong of a unit, doesn't have a lot of buffs. His heal below 30% HP is almost useless because generally speaking, he's either dead or your whole team's dead for it procs anyway, so it's not a huge heal anyways, only 135% of his attack. It's not that great. It really isn't that good. Just all around very mediocre and desperate need of a buff before he's ever useful again, in my opinion. When you go to the Abyss, you got Dant. Like I said, I've never used Dant personally past 6-star, but the self-cure when he's at 10-star is 7% of his missing HP, so it's about half what resilience naturally gives you. So when you put that together, he's going to heal for 15% of his missing HP at the end of every round, but every time he's hit, he's going to heal for 7%. So if you got this guy at a couple million health and he's down really low in HP, every hit's going to heal this guy for multiple thousands of health, hundreds of thousands of health, which makes him kind of hard to kill. And that's kind of the point of trolling with him as a tank. He does decent damage for warriors and a decent burn dot on all enemies, but I don't know, I haven't seen enough Tallien used in my server to say whether or not he'd be worth a build. I don't know. The damage reduction is definitely handy, though. Having that stack up to 6 rounds and then just stay, that's not bad. It's 36% reduced damage just naturally. If you throw a reduced damage artifact on him, you can get to almost 60% reduced damage on Tallien after round 6, which again makes him harder and harder to kill, and with this heal, makes him even harder to kill. So I would say he's actually way, way better than he was previously before they changed him, but without having used one, I can't necessarily recommend or not recommend the guy, in the spirit of fairness. When it comes to Edga, I've never seen an Edga used at E3 on official. Personally, I've only ever used one on the private server, and he is slightly different over there because of the enable system and such like that. I would say in PvE, you could probably get yours to push out about 100 million damage. which sounds great if you're a newer player, but my 10-star Shia is already putting out 100 million plus, and she's only 10-star. She's not even E3'd yet. I would expect her to drop probably 200 plus million at E3. So I would say, I mean, you could build him if you really like the way he looks. He does look pretty cool. He will have PvE usefulness. He does have some decent self-sustain. It's not amazing. When he does a basic attack, he heals. His active skill also heals him. His heals aren't huge because his attack is pretty low, but it does give him some self-sustain. He does have some decent crit ability, especially by, round 15. That crit's really stacked up. He does hit pretty hard. But like I said, he's kind of mid-tier. I would say Edgar is very much like the staple of a mid-tier hero. He's decent, but he's not really great. So like I said, if you want to build him, definitely build him. Some people really like him. I think he looks really cool, but looking really cool in this case isn't worth the build in my opinion. With that said, everybody knows about Dark Arthur. I don't want to try to spam down. There's not that many Dark heroes. Bam. Like I said, 1188. Pretty fast unit. There are units faster than her in the game, of course, like Demon Hunter and Shia for the regular factions. And then Faithblade, Mim, Amuvor, they're faster than her, obviously. I don't know if Michelle is or not. I could check it here in a second. But very much a PvP-focused unit with not a lot of damage coming on her active skill. It's mainly about petrifying people. That's the idea. She does have a chance to steal energy, which, believe it or not, can be hyper frustrating in PvP. When you have one of your nukes lined up to cast their active skill, Dark Arthur goes off, doesn't petrify them, but steals 30 energy, and then they can't cast their active. It can really bone you, so that's why you see her in PvP. You do see her quite a bit up there. Not bad at it. Definitely what she's built for. Not a PvE unit at all. Pretty decent. Pretty easy to build for a dark unit, so not bad. And then Gurki, the last unit here. Bam. Like I said, looks pretty cool to me. I really like that art design. Other than his high-heeled shoe hand, which is still weird. I don't know why he's holding his fingers so straight. But he is. He totally is. Anyways, like I said, not super great. He does gain at 10-star the ability to increase 3 allies' holy damage. It is a permanent buff. I don't think there's a round limitation to it, so you get that holy damage and it stacks. So if you had multiple Gurkis, you might be able to stack your holy damage to a pretty stupid level. But like I said, he's just so slow. 1108 is incredibly slow speed. One of the slowest heroes in the game, actually. So when it comes to PvP, he's generally crowd controlled or dead before he gets to attack heavily, especially in the later game PvP. In PvE, he just doesn't do a lot of damage. His healing's okay. It's not the best heals. It's alright heals. Plus, he has a little bit more self-sustain when he does attacks and when he's hit, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. A pretty high natural holy damage stack as well. But in PvE, he doesn't hit really all that hard. He does boost your team's survivability by a little bit and also boost their damage by a little bit. But I would say you'll get much better returns using a Rosa than you will get using a Gurki for your support. So, other than looking really cool and the fact that I am building a Gurki because he looks cool, he's not super useful. Plus that skin. God, that skin just, oh yeah, baby. It's good. It's good. But that is the event pretty much laid out. I'm not super into it. Personally, it's one of the worst events they've done since they've knocked all the cool updates out, which is great. But like I said, not every event can be a super winner for everybody. This one's just not something I'm super into. But there you go. We've covered the events, covered the heroes. That's going to be it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please make sure, smash that thumbs up button and show your support. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe as well, and tell your friends about it, because that definitely helps me out a lot. And I will see you guys in the next one.